Good evening, everybody. This is EdTech Mixed Plate, episode 28. Thanks for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. We have a great panel of special guests joining us. And this is our third episode this month in celebration and support of Connected Educator Month. And we've already talked about makerspaces and the maker movement. Last week we talked about creating educator professional development. And tonight we're going to be talking about leadership for change. We got some great leaders in the education profession here in Hawaii, and we have some great questions lined up for them. And we should have a great discussion tonight. But first, let's get through some introductions. I'll start. My name is Michael Fricano. I'm a tech integration specialist at Mililani School. Rachel, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Armstrong. I'm a tech coordinator at Hale Kula Elementary School. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Rachel. Michelle?
Sure. Hi, I'm Michelle Colte, and I'm the librarian at Hale Kula Elementary School.
All right. And Jan?
And I'm Jan Iwase, the principal at Hale Kula Elementary School.
We've had Jan on before, right?
Yes, twice, I think.
Quite a few episodes ago. A returning guest. We really appreciate you coming on, Jen. And we have two new guests. Fred, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Fred Murphy. I'm principal at Mililani High School.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today, Fred. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
And our last special guest is Darrel. You want to introduce yourself, Darrel?
Hi, everyone. I'm Darrel Gallera. I'm the Executive Director of the Educational Institute of Hawaii.
Cool. Thanks for being with us tonight, Darrel. We really appreciate it. And you three have a lot to share, especially after a pretty recent trip, yeah?
Yes.
Well, yeah, we'll get into all the details about that. Really exciting trip that you guys had. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We do have a couple of live audience members out there. We really appreciate you guys tuning in live tonight. And we're starting a little earlier than normal. We're at 7 o'clock tonight. We're usually on at 8. But we figured we tried a new time slot tonight, maybe encourage some more live viewers, including hopefully Peggy's with us. Peggy comes from, where does Peggy live?
Arizona, and Mike already commented that she likes this earlier hour.
So this episode's for you, Peggy, because we know you're always staying up late with us, and hopefully she can get to bed a little earlier tonight after we're done. But yeah, just a couple of housekeeping things. We do have a show notes document that we have our questions posted, and there's a couple of resources already put up in that document, and we'll continue to add to it through our discussion tonight. But the link is on my lower thirds here, below my face. It is bit.ly/mixedplate-28. I had to put a dash in there because I kind of messed up on things a little bit this time around. So the URL is a little different than usual, but it's bit.ly/mixedplate-28. And we do invite our audience to add comments and suggestions to the show notes if you guys have any of your own resources to share. So please check that out tonight. And also don't forget to check out our website. There it is. It's bit.ly/edtechmixedplate. And all of our episodes are archived along with our show notes, and we do have a calendar for future episodes, as well as a forum that we'd encourage our audience to fill out to join our mailing list and to ask any questions for future topics. So feel free to check that out. We really appreciate it. I'm going to keep the show notes up for a little while on my lower third. But I think we can dive into our topic of leadership for change. Leadership for change is one of the main 7 themes of Connected Educator Month. It's a very important topic, a very important theme. And we chose it as one of our 4 episodes for this month to focus on, which is why we have 3 very special guests on to talk about that theme. So I think Michelle's going to kind of lead us with the questions, and we'll just have some very informal discussions, conversations, and if any of our audience wants to chime in on those discussions and offer their own, if they have any questions to ask or any opinions to add to the discussion, we really appreciate it. So what's our first question, Michelle?
Oh yeah, well the first question is actually for Darrel, and Darrel, I wondered if you could just kind of tell us how this trip came about. And I guess we should say maybe you can start with the places you visited, and I was curious to know how you chose those places, and then maybe even a little bit about if you can divulge why you chose the principals that you did.
Okay.
That's a loaded question, but we'll start from the beginning.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Michelle, the trip came about, it's actually part of the formation of our new think tank called the Education Institute in Hawaii. And our first major task was to do a study by visiting some important sites where they've been working on or looking at the concept of empowerment of schools, of principals and teachers. So the trip was part of our think tank plan of action. And so we were lucky to receive funding from Takatani Foundation in order to take this trip. And again, as I shared, the focus of the trip is to look at this concept of empowerment and how schools and systems are empowered. And so when we selected the sites that we visited, we were looking specifically at locations where we could gain a lot of learning from. We were not necessarily looking for any kind of model. We were looking for places where they have rich experiences for us to learn from. So one of the sites we selected was Los Angeles Unified School District. They had begun this effort in reforming their school district for empowerment beginning back in 1990. And so for the last 24 years, it's been something that they've been working on. So we knew that they had lots of wisdom and lessons learned to share with us. We also visited a group called the Alliance Schools in LA, where, again, they were looking at the reform efforts of empowerment, and they made a decision to move toward charter types of schools in order to have autonomy. So they also had some lessons for us to learn. We went to Clark County in Las Vegas because Clark County also had a very strong focus on empowerment beginning back in the early 2000s. And they will admit that they feel that they failed. They have a large school district like a Hawaii. They will admit that they failed, but they were more than willing to share the lessons they learned from not being successful in implementing that. And then we flew to Canada, and we again selected Canada because of in Edmonton, they have a school district called the Edmonton Public School District, where beginning back in 1972, they've been working on this. So for 40 years, they probably are a school district that is called the most respected and most admired school district in North America, based on their work with empowerment. So that's the sites and reasons why we selected those sites. Your question about the selection of who made up our delegation team, they were actually 27 members. We had members who included members of the Board of Education. We had complex area superintendents. We had people from the state office, including assistant superintendents and former assistant superintendents, and principals and teachers. The selection was based on looking at trying to get as many, trying to represent all of the districts, and also looking at very respected, very experienced, knowledgeable educators. We called it like a blue ribbon panel. Having principals like Jan and Fred, we were extremely lucky and honored to have them because they are some of the top principals in the state.
I knew you could handle my my multiple questions at once, and you gave perfect background. Thank you, Darrel. I just wanted folks to know where you went and the purpose and all of that. And I guess now Fred and Jan, and then Darrell, I'll give you just a quick break. I'm wondering if you could share some of the highlights of your trip.
Okay. Fred, you want to go first? Okay. Well, I think for me, the highlights were really seeing empowerment in action and seeing the different schools. So we I guess 3 of the days were actually listening and learning from district people, which was very valuable. But really seeing how the Alliance charter schools operate and meeting the kids there, and in Edmonton the same thing at the Michael Strambitsky School. I think for many of our people in our delegation, it's always nice to be around kids and to actually see that the empowerment that they have in their school districts really does make a difference for the students. And for me, that was the highlight, although I think the whole trip itself was very educational for me and a really great learning opportunity, which I appreciate very much.
Thanks, Jan. And Fred?
Mm-hmm. Fred? Oy.
Uh-oh, did he freeze? He maybe froze. Well, hopefully he can come back in. So, come back.
Fred?
Fred, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Fred.
Sorry, I don't know. I was speaking. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. For me, it was a mixed bag. First of all, the trip was well planned. The sequence of schools that we went to and school districts really helped us to have a variety of experiences. As Darrell mentioned, we saw where there was intent for change and how that intent maybe fell apart over time, how change evolved. I guess when I talk about the change that fell apart, I'm looking a little bit about the Clark County School District. When we went to LA, we certainly saw how change in a very large system is very difficult, and LA Unified has a plethora of change initiatives all happening at once, and the charter school initiative is really probably the most nimble and the fastest growing component of change in their department. But going to Edmonton was an affirmation for myself that change can happen in large systems and that it can be sustained over time, and even that has an evolution to it where maybe what they started in 1972 was built upon over decades, and that's affirming to me. The very basic affirmation that I had is very simple, and that is the best level of empowerment, or the best notion about empowerment is that leading the class take decisions to its lowest level, if you will, is the most important, because a person who is interfacing with the students is empowered to make those decisions and will make those decisions whether you want them to be empowered or not. And if you really believe in the power of teaching and that relationship, that very basic relationship, then you want to make sure that you're including that in your leadership. Sorry, I was interrupted by my son.
No, that's no problem. We have frequent photo bombers walking through or participating. That's great. It's really exciting to know that this trip happened and that you folks are looking at empowerment. And Fred, to hear you say too that it needs to reach down to the even the classroom level. I would imagine even there's a degree of student empowerment that we'd want to talk about also. Yes. Darrell, were there any highlights for you that you wanted to share?
I think the whole trip was a highlight. Actually, being around 26 amazing educators and people who care about education was inspiring to me. What Fred just shared there was this belief that resonated through the trip for me, where people said things like, there are just two types of people that we want to look at in our systems. The first is the teacher and who work with the students in the classroom, and then there's everybody else who is there to support the teacher. That simple way of thinking about things, and how sometimes we need to just break it down to the simplest way of thinking about how to really empower everyone in our schools.
I really like that. I'm actually thinking, Mike, that you and Rachel and I are now in that position where we are looking, how can we as the support staff empower the teacher? It kind of flips things a little bit, or I don't know, I'll have to think about that a little bit. That's great. Thank you, Darrel. And I wondered if there's anything, though, that you saw when you were visiting that validated what we're already doing in some of our schools. Darrel, you I'm sure there were things that you saw that you used to do at Moanalua or at your other schools, or Fred or Jan, anything that validated your efforts?
Well, I'll go ahead and jump in, Darrel.
Sure, Fred.
So that was one of the themes that was consistent throughout our visit. As we looked at examples of great change, we were affirmed that some of the things that the other school districts are striving for, things that Hawaii has been doing for a decade and even longer, things like weighted student formula, where we give more money to the schools and to the principals and empower principals to make decisions about personnel, as opposed to getting those things parceled out to from a higher level, and maybe the rest of them jump in.
I think that what Fred said is true. As the principal, we do the financial plan. They give us the money in a lump sum. I think the question I came back with, and I'm pondering right now, is, and it's something that somebody brought up yesterday in our meeting, is do we have enough resources to be truly empowered? And I think that's a question that we need to really look at in our department, because resources does not mean just money, but it also means time, and it also means people. And whether we feel we have enough of it, I don't think we ever do. And I know that for our school, if I had more resources, I think we could do a lot more to empower our teachers. So.
And Michelle, just to echo what Fred had shared, yes, I think when we hear from other schools and districts, we do affirm some of the many things that we do in Hawaii that we've also been going on the same journey and learning about. Some of the districts would kill to see how we've implemented weighted student formula, and they're trying right now to do the same thing. But I think we also saw when we went to the Mike Strombinsky School, and we saw an exemplary school. We know we have those same schools here in Hawaii, at Hale Kula, at Mililani, and many other schools where they're doing great things. And we know what it takes. It takes strong leadership, and it takes empowered teachers who are willing to be creative and provide the relevant and engaging learning. So it did affirm many of the things we know about, and at the same time it provided us many things to think about, how we can continue to make our students become the thriving students we want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Darrel. Hey, Mike, I just noticed that Shane has a question that he posted. Do you want to click on that one? Shane's question, he's wondering, he says, the one resource we never have enough seems to be time. Yeah, that's definitely true. Actually, is that something you posed to the schools that you visited? That's something I think all educators must feel, like Shane is saying. Did any of them have creative uses of time to empower their teachers?
I don't know. I know in Edmonton they said they actually use their own time to meet together. So
So they.
Oh,
I
you
don't think
mean
it was
like
built in.
personal time? Like
Yes, personal time.
they're not. So they're not unionized?
You know what? I think they are.
Huh.
What do you think got them to a point where they make that decision to use their personal time? 'Cause I think in many schools there are teachers I think that wouldn't make that decision. So how do you get them to that point, or how do you think they got to that point?
Well, let me give you maybe a part response to the use of time.
Yeah.
We did have many discussions about the use of professional development time. And so, for example, in LAUSD, they talked about very intentional use of professional development and ways that they talked about 2+1 model for professional development of 2 days of training followed up by a day of reflection uh, after teachers had implemented. And so they have a commitment of time to professional development that I think we could really consider. In other districts, in the Alliance schools, they talked about spending, when we asked what was your training for Common Core, some schools in Hawaii talk about 1 day of training for the new curriculum. And in the Alliance schools, they said they had an entire month, 30 days committed to training before the school year opened. So, as far as time, I think maybe there are different, depending on the context, there was a definite value on professional development and trying to provide that time for professional development.
The other thing about the Alliance schools, I think that should be brought up is, that's the school that was started by Bill Ouchi from UCLA, who wrote that book, Making Schools Work, and he's really an advocate for empowerment. But they actually, because they're a charter school alliance, they actually take money off the top for operations, and they have like superintendents who actually spend 80% of their time in the schools. They really visit all the schools. They work with the principals. They work with the teachers. So it's very, very focused there, and they know exactly what the schools need as a result. So I think that makes a really big difference when you can have somebody like that to see what's happening and to really make sure that because the Alliance, the students in the Alliance are 95% are free and reduced students. They're all low income. Their sole purpose is to get these kids college and career ready. So it's all middle schools and high schools. And many of them, when they started middle school in 6th grade, they were like 2-3 years behind in reading. So, but when you talk to the kids, they're very, very much committed to the vision of the school, which is to get them college ready by the time they graduate. So, yeah.
Sorry, I have a tree being cut in the background. There's like a whole bunch of firefighters out here, so I've been trying to be quiet. But I had a quick question about the professional development piece. Did you see any schools where they were offering Darrel, you had mentioned they were doing like a 2-1 in one place, but did they have anywhere they were offering personalized professional development for the teachers, or were any of them venturing into that area of taking personal paths for PD?
Yeah, again, because we're looking at this empowerment concept, when the principals are empowered, the principals would be developing or designing and implementing a personalized professional development for their school. So when you look at, for example, the school we visited at the end, the training and their new teacher training, their professional development training, again, is customized based on what they were learning. So again, it's all part of this concept. It's not supposed to be top down and one size fits all. It's supposed to be customized and tailored to the school.
Yeah, I like that. But it was coming from the principal or the needs of the school, right? The teacher wasn't per se picking their own development, right? It was kind of coming from the needs of the school. Then, if I'm hearing you right.
Yeah, and I believe that the principal would be doing a needs assessment of the needs of the teachers to design that.
I think Fred was trying to say something.
I didn't see anything that was something that I haven't seen being done in our schools necessarily. I actually think that we have a great deal of time allocated for professional development, and we're able to make our bell schedules and our systems work. It takes some doing at our schools, but Darrel touched a little bit upon it, and the difference is maybe the nimbleness, because we're looking at smaller entities that are making the most basic decisions for curriculum and instruction in their schools. There is a larger philosophy when you talk about the LA Alliance schools or when you talk about the Edmonton schools, sort of an inoculation that everybody gets, but they really leave decision-making to the different entities. So there was a lot of talk about maybe differentiation by school, not as personal as maybe you were thinking there, individualized to the teacher. I think I was left with the impression that they still have to go out and find things specific to their genre, maybe like if it was a language teacher or something like that. They're on their own for that. But there is sort of a response to intervention model or some other philosophies at play throughout the district, or these smaller districts that maybe are the one-size-fits-all kind of initiatives. But when you get to, like I said, the curriculum and some of the other problem solving that happens at the classroom level, that was much more personalized. I don't think that that's something we can't do in Hawaii. I think that our struggle sometimes maybe is that there are a lot of things that we're being asked to do, but strong principals work with their teachers in Hawaii now, and strong teachers make sense of the larger things, and I think we just need to focus that conversation to those teachers. I actually think we've got excellent educators who know how to do just as much as any of the other teachers did in Edmonton, LA, or Las Vegas. So it's more about systematizing that thought and concentrating on decision making at the classroom and school level.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that Peggy has a few comments and questions in the Q&A, and one thing she mentioned was that one way that she sees students and teachers empowered is when they take the ownership of their own learning and don't just expect someone else to provide it. I mean, I think to some extent the school is responsible for providing some of those school-wide initiatives, PD for those things, but as you mentioned, Fred, the teacher kind of has to make those decisions for themselves too, based on their own subject or whatever position they hold in the school. So that was really interesting. Thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then she did ask if you'd be able to share any specific examples of things that you observed on your trip that involve empowering students and teachers. Were you able to visit any classrooms, and what did you see those students doing, and what kinds of things did you see the teachers doing as well? Do you have any of those opportunities during your visit?
Mm-hmm. Well, at the Michael Stransky School, which is a K-9 school, K-9, right? Yeah. The students were really exploring. So they had, there was a third grade class, well, all of the third grade classes actually were learning about sound, parts of the ear, how sound is made and everything. And they were creating their own musical instruments. And it was just really neat to see them being creative and really helping each other, being critical friends, and giving suggestions to their classmates about how they could make their project better. The one I was just really intrigued with, and I really wish I could have seen the final product, was the kid who was actually making a bagpipe. And he had the picture of the bagpipe, he had his plastic bag, he had the tubes, and he could not get it to work. But he had a lot of ideas about what was wrong with it, and he was going to be consulting an expert, somebody who played the bagpipe, and try to fix it. And I thought that was really neat.
Hey Jan, can I just jump in? Because it goes along. Peggy shared a link to this picture. Mike, can you see it on my screen, the little boy?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a photo from Dean Sharesky, actually, that Peggy just shared. And I love this quote. It goes exactly with what you said, Jan. We need to move beyond the idea that an education is something that is provided for us and toward the idea that an education is something that we create for ourselves. I really like that. And actually, it leads me to, I guess, another question. Did you feel that you saw that kind of empowerment where the teachers were able to make some of their own choices in the curriculum, either project-based or anything?
Well, I'll share that when we, again, visited Edmonton, the school was going through some change in the community. There were new homes being built, and so it was affecting their enrollment. And so the teachers came up with a unit which was very creative and very much relevant to the students the students were asking many questions about what was happening around their school. And so the teachers took advantage of that. And again, it's a community-based project where students had to design and then bid on house lots, and then they had to build homes. And I mean, it was very innovative and very engaging. And again, just taking advantage of what's happening around them to bring learning alive. I thought that was a fascinating lesson activity that they were doing.
I really love that. Thank you for sharing. Jan had some great pictures of the houses they created. They were incredible because it seemed like they created actual models, wasn't it?
Yes.
Like three-dimensional models. I know my question for Jan is actually a question I expect Shane to ask in a few minutes. Shane is the tech coordinator at Mililani Elementary School, and we all know that the question that he's probably wondering is did they build it in Minecraft? But Jan said she forgot to ask if they built it in Minecraft. But
I don't know if they're using Minecraft. I didn't ask them that.
okay, but that's so exciting, and I think that I have to say, as a parent, that's the kind of thing I wish I saw more, where I could, where I would see my own children get excited about projects that are relevant to them. So thank you for sharing that one. Yeah, and actually, Chris has joined us, Chris Betcher, and he has a question too. Do you want to go through that one?
Yeah, very honored to have Chris Betcher. He comes from Australia, and
oh wow!
Honored to have him watching live with us tonight. But yeah, he commented in the Q&A. He said, as a teacher trainer himself, one of the greatest frustrations he has is when he sees teachers requesting help for the same things year after year after year, and he says it's as though they never actually learned things that they're doing, and they just expect someone to always be there to help them along the way. So that was a kind of an interesting comment. I mean, do we see that happening in our schools? And how do we?
I think sometimes when you have to repeat something, you have to ask yourself if it was used. And sometimes if it's not used, there's a natural question to ask, how purposeful really was it? And one of the things that I challenge my curriculum coordinators when I work with them, if they express feelings about feeling frustrated because they say, gosh, we taught the teachers this last year and why are they not doing it this year? You got to ask yourself, did you teach them something you thought they needed, or did you teach them something they actually needed and who put to use?
Yeah.
That's something that's a really sobering reality sometimes as a principal. When you think you figured something out, or you think that you worked something out with your curriculum coordinators, and then you find out that, gee, what they really did maybe isn't what you crafted, but something that they came up with. So it's an indicator that you may want to rethink what you're teaching from year to year if it's not purposeful.
Yeah.
And being used.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I want to actually add to that, Fred. I think that was a pretty tweetable moment right there, because what he said goes exactly along with what Michelle says in essence, because teachers really are just big kids. I mean, aren't we all? So, if we're expecting to perform a certain way for our students and we want to empower them to get them to create instead of just pushing our agenda on them, I know school is a system-wide thing, then we can't expect to then turn around if we're doing that for our children or trying to move that way and then have PD be a certain way for teachers as well. So again, I think it comes down to who's creating for who here. And we want the teachers being empowered to learn. Well, then it needs to be something they actually want to learn about.
And
I think that's important. I think what you said was very important right there. Sorry,
definitely. No, no, no. I agree with what Fred said, but I want to share something that Rachel said to me a couple of years ago, because we were at ISTE and Rachel came back.
She does this to me all the time.
I love this story. But I think it showed me how I need to think about myself when I'm teaching, or even kids or adults, and that's that. You know, Rachel was raving about this tech tool that someone went over at one of the sessions, and I said, but Rachel, I showed that to you like 3 years ago. And she said, well, I wasn't ready for it then. And I really like what she said, because it made me stop and think, you know, first of all, did I provide the relevance for the tool when I showed it to her? And maybe I didn't. And then secondly, I think that, you know, there are times when we as learners are more receptive than others. So I think it's just important to keep that learner mindset, maybe, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I wanted to add, you know,
Oops.
around the empowerment piece, and that's, I believe, what we're here to, you know, for me, is about thinking about how my school operates. But when we talk about the larger system, we're thinking how schools operate within a larger system, and I'm always trying to think about where does the decision make most sense to be made, because there are things that we do need to come from a central authority. You do need some organization to be a part of a system. You do need some rules to operate within. You do need some social norms and organizational norms. But those norms should be about designing your systems to be as nimble as possible to meet the needs of the learners in the class.
And I think what Rachel and Michelle said about teachers just being big kids, I mean, I think that's kind of true. And I think that as a school leader, I try very much when we have meetings or professional learning opportunities that we're going to model what we want to see in the classrooms. And, you know, we hear so much, I mean, I've been reading so much about how kids need to get up and they can't be expected to sit down all the time. Well, I'm the worst example of that. I mean, if you see me at some of these principal meetings where I have to stand up just to get up, because it's just really painful to be sitting for such a long time. So I think that, you know, if we can model for teachers, and after a while they start to get it, but it does take several times sometimes for people to see that. So yeah.
Or maybe, Jan, what's kind of neat too is when different teachers can step up and then co-teach. You know what I mean? Like this year, how in our Tech Time for Teachers, it's not just me, Rachel, and Megan doing the teaching. It's actually other teachers who are teaching what we taught before. So that's kind of empowering too.
Oh yes, exactly.
Okay, first I just have to say OMG, Chris Betcher, because I've watched a YouTube video that I use for Scratch, so hi. But I guess there was a link you put in the Q&A about the one that, and I think I got this from Jan, actually, you guys. She had shared the broken escalator video at one of our PDs, I do believe. And so the link is not opening for me, but I think it's a real, that if you haven't seen that YouTube video, Mike, it's in the show notes now, or in the, we can put it in or something. Basically, it's just kind of almost an analogy for problem solving and critical thinking. And I used it in the classroom one year for math problem solving with the kids, and they got it. And Jan has used it before in our PD, like I said, and I think it's interesting because it's a really good analogy to everything we've just been talking about. We can either sit around on, you know, like on the escalator waiting for someone to save us, or we can learn it for ourselves. So I wanted to mention that, and I had to say OMG because he's pretty awesome. You have a fan.
I put the YouTube video that Chris shared in the show notes. I haven't actually watched it before, so I'm excited to check that out afterwards. But he's kind of
it's pretty funny actually. So check that video out. It's pretty funny. I got that one from Jan.
I also included the image that Peggy shared, so I put a link to that in the show notes. And I think you briefly mentioned a book titled Making Schools Work. And so I tossed in a link to that book in the show notes as well by William G.
Yeah.
Ouchi? Or is
Ochi.
it?
Ochi.
Ouchi. Cool.
Okay.
Have the rest of you seen that video before?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think I may be one of the only ones who haven't seen that video, so I'm excited to watch.
Hey, I was wondering, you know, Darrel, when you listed off the different schools you went to and you knew the history behind it, I wondered if these were schools you had been following through your educational career, if that's how you selected them?
No, just to let you know, when we planned this trip, we have been meeting and conferencing with many people from across the country. So we've been talking to people from New York through different parts of the mainland and the West Coast and up into Canada. And they were advising us on or suggesting to us what were places that would be of maximum benefit to us. Because we limited the trip to a week, we looked for something that was logistically going to work. But we were also considering going to New York, considering looking at the empowerment reform in Houston, also looking at the empowerment reform in Seattle, and in Boston and in Chicago. So there are many places that we're researching and learning from, but it wasn't something that I was familiar with. This was a big learning curve for all of us in our group.
And when you say that, you know, you've been talking with folks in New York and across the country and up into Canada, were you connecting with them via social media, or was it more email and phone calls?
Mostly phone calls and email, so mostly phone conferences.
You got to know, Michelle, that Darrel put this together in like a couple of weeks.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
It was just really done, and it was very well organized. So we appreciate that, because we didn't have to think about where we were going to go as long as we followed the person in front of us.
No, Jan is being too kind. We have a really great team. A lot of people contributing, and including Jan and Fred. So it was a great team effort.
So I'm wondering if. Oh, go ahead, Jan. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to kind of share that, you know, I have a brother in Seattle, and he talked to me about his girls, you know, and how they had to. I guess they had more empowerment, but when they were going to start kindergarten, they had to go and apply them at several different schools, hoping that they would get into one of their choice schools. And they got into different, I mean, they attended different schools as elementary school students. And then my grandson was in Clark County, so I was kind of curious about that one too. And, you know, he was in an international school. It was really great. When I talked to the principal there a couple years ago when he was in kindergarten, they actually provide a PE teacher, a librarian, a music teacher, and an art teacher at every school. If it's a small school, they have to share, but every school gets it, and that's when their teachers have their prep time. The downside to that is that if you have a special program, like my grandson was in an international school where the school was taught half of the day in English and the other half in Spanish, the money for those teachers have to come out of the school budget. So he had a kindergarten class with 30 kids in it. And, you know, a lot of diversity in the classroom. I'm sure it wasn't easy for the teacher to teach kindergartners in 30. So when my grandson had a chance to go to a charter school, which is really big in Vegas too. They have a lot of charter schools. He actually went there where the class size is 15 and it's a focus on science. So there's a lot of, you know, personal history here that I was interested in, and it was very good for us to visit those districts. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I want to jump in there. You know, when you talk about those kinds of examples, Jan, it struck me that that's exactly what you and I have the power to do now. You know, we can control class size to a large extent. We can look at specialty programs and decide how much our school is going to invest in them. So like at Wheeler Elementary School, I was able to leverage a music, a science, a music, a science, a Hawaiian studies teacher, a technology teacher, for every student to interface with every 2 weeks, and the teacher planning time that happened. And I think that what I guess again I was appalled about is the things that we can do as principals in Hawaii now in the public school system. And it was a reminder that the grass may look greener, but you have to sometimes remind yourself that you actually can do a whole lot more than you maybe think. You know, you have to expand your horizons. You need to go and look at things that other people are doing and challenge yourself to be better with what you have, because many people are making the same sort of resource regimen that you are. But there was a question of adequacy versus, you know, when you have empowerment, you have to make sure that you are empowered to spend the resources that are adequate for your school. And sometimes we wonder if you have adequacy in Hawaii. But I think that everybody seems to have that question of adequacy, or at least most. Maybe less so in EdTech, but most seem to have that issue where they were empowered, but they still were left with the sense that they could use more.
Yeah, because it's not just it's also the facilities. I mean, you know, when we had a lot of kids, we could find more teachers, but there was no space to put them, right? I mean, we had no room. There was a time when we had no room at our school. And so now that our enrollment is going down, we're kind of like having to cut, and that's really difficult. Where do you cut? You know, because the state also is asking you to do RTI, they're asking you to mentoring, induction, Common Core, and you need resource people for that. So it really is, it's not as easy as I would wish it could be. And I think we need to look at the money in the department and see where we might be able to get some extra funds.
Oh, I agree about that. And one thing we and I both agree, we saw this fantastic example. We talked about enrollment issues where a school needed portable classrooms, and they were able to get it, I think, in like 6 months, where sometimes
6 of them.
That kind of
and they were very inexpensive. And not only that, she said that the kids for 2 months or something, they were kind of barred from a certain area because they were putting it up. Well, and she said that was so difficult. Well, I know that Rachel and Michelle will agree with me that our school has been, for 3 years, we're going to be under construction, and but we're not complaining because it's going to be a beautiful school when we're done. Yeah.
I just want to make
okay, go ahead. But we got to answer Shane's question afterwards. Okay.
Okay. I just wanted to make a comment. I agree with what Fred is saying about having empowerment and not taking things for granted, what we do in Hawaii. I believe when Fred makes those comments that it really depends on the principal's leadership in these instances. The principal who is seeking to use those autonomies and seek that empowerment. But what resonated with me when we went to LA Unified was that they had the structures in the system in place, that a huge support system to support this idea of empowerment. So if LA Unified had 600 schools, they had 250 charter schools. And then in addition to the 250 and their support system for the charter schools, then they had 50 pilot schools, which were the next closest thing to charter schools, that the district created an entire service center separately to support these pilot schools. So when you think about 300 or 350 schools working in different autonomies, and then there's all these support systems, I know for a fact that in Hawaii, in the Hawaii DOE, we have one specialist working in the area of school community councils and waivers and so forth, versus an entire infrastructure. And so the idea of being empowered and practicing empowerment as a principal will be enhanced when there is a commitment to it by the system itself.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. And I know Shane, you want to
Yeah,
read Shane's
Jane
question?
has a question, but I just wanted to share a comment from Peggy because she said that she loved the point that Fred was making about, where is it, that we'll never be able to do that because, and she said sometimes we limit ourselves with, yeah, but, and we need to switch our thinking to that growth mindset, more of the what if. And I think that this year, especially at Hale Kula, even though it's the second year of EES and tripod survey and SLOs and all those things, we've seen our teachers asking so many what-if questions and being willing to try new things. It's exciting. So I really liked Peggy's point. And then, Mike, do you want to bring up Shane's question? Do you want to put it out there?
Yeah, he's got a great question. There we go. Yeah, so Shane he is at Mililani, right? Mililani Elementary. And we've had him on a couple times talking about the use of Minecraft in education. He's one of the top experts in Hawaii, I would think, on the idea of Minecraft. But he's commenting here about PD, and he says that I guess in his opinion, the trend with the DOE lately seems to be moving, less away from having those dedicated PD days to more about having these like online WebEx recorded sessions that teachers can watch on their own time. And he's just wondering, is this something that we should be concerned about? I mean, what is that really the direction that the DOE is heading in, where
Well, Mike, I think the asynchronous idea is a good one. I mean, that does save time.
Definitely.
And I know Jan's done that flipped PD kind of thing where we watch a video ahead of time, and when we do get together, we can talk about it. But at the same time, it seems to take away some of the personal interaction of the faculty learning together and maybe reflecting together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if that's where he was going, but that's kind of how I'm interpreting it.
Now his question kind of got cut off there. I think there's a text limit there, but.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I'm really I would like to see before I retire, but I don't know if it will happen. But I really think that when the teachers union negotiates with the department, or when the legislators or the Board of Education talk about increase in instructional time, I wish that they would think in terms of using that time instead of for the students to actually increase the capacity of teachers, to have them, in countries like Japan where they have lesson study or where teachers really observe each other, they really have time for meeting. They spend way more time in professional development with each other than we do in our schools. And that's why they have such a high rate of teachers who stay in the profession and who get better. And they also, there's a lot of collaboration and a lot of good ideas shared. And I really think that we really need to start looking at that model instead of just looking at instructional time, because I don't think that having kids in school longer is necessarily going to increase student achievement. I think that increasing the capacity of teachers to teach is a much better way to go in terms of increasing student achievement. That's my big issue right now.
I love what you're saying, Jan. So even though I'll be sad that you're going to retire, I'll vote for you for public office.
I don't think so.
I'll make a comment about Shane's question, and that is that this idea of PD days coming from the state, from the central office, or even WebEx sessions, again, it does kind of reflect the idea of a one-size-fits-all PD coming from the state. And again, if the discussion is about the people who are closest to the classroom and working with the students know how to make the best decisions. Decisions about PD, how it should be structured, how it should be provided, how much of it should be something that should be discussed and looked at by the school, by the principal. And I think that's how you'll get the best results and the impact of any kind of PD or any kind of WebEx sessions. So just the idea again about looking at the concept of empowerment.
I wanted to tag on to Darrel. And Darrel, you said this, and it was really well worded earlier, and that is these things the principal can do now at their school. Like, for instance, when we do get those WebEx seminars or Blackboard online things, modules for teachers to the conscious choice at Mililani, we truncate times. We take the highlights and we make sure that the teachers are inoculated. They know where they can go for a richer or deeper experience if they want to see the whole video. But we do not just show them like films were shown in the 70s in the classroom. We don't do that. We try to make sure that we look at the minutes that we have and make the best use of them. But Darrel, what you said earlier was making sure that the system is set up so that people feel that they can make those choices. Because sometimes as a principal, especially when I am sitting around a table with teacher leaders and other administrators, and I start to say, well, wait now, let's look at it, let's personalize it. They say, what do you mean? Can we do that? And I said, sure we can. You know, I give them that latitude, but they question me because they think that maybe somehow in our system it's that rigid. And you know, like Darrel said, we need to increase that culture so that people do feel empowered to make those kinds of personal or personalized decisions for the schools.
Yeah, I agree. Great point, Fred.
Yeah.
So, wow, the hour's gone by kind of fast. I really appreciate you folks being here, and so maybe we'll do some final thoughts, but I have kind of a loaded question, and I'm not sure, Darrel, if you feel comfortable answering it streaming live to YouTube. But, you know, I'm kind of wondering what your next steps are with the Education Institute of Hawaii, and I think it's a really exciting idea to, you know, talk about changing the system of the DOE, and I'm just wondering if you can divulge any next steps or anything.
Well, what we are planning to do is hold a conference coming up very soon, probably at the end of November. If I have my druthers, it'll be a 2-day conference where we can share. There'll be a lot of sharing about many of the things we learned, and we also hope to bring in some very excellent speakers, some of the people we just met and some others, and also maybe have people even from our own schools who can talk about this concept of empowerment. So I'm hoping it'll be right near the middle or end of November. That's like not enough time to plan. We usually take a year to plan this, but I don't know, Jan and Fred, they really keep us working here. So we hope that'll be a great venue and forum for all stakeholders to come. We hope to get 500 or 600 people there so we can have a really rich discussion from everyone about empowerment.
Well, I think that's really exciting. I'm wondering, I know the time is going and Mike knows I need to stop talking, but I'm wondering if you folks are going to do any social media rollout. You know, are you thinking, with Connected Educators Month, are you thinking of a Google community for the Education Institute of Hawaii, or a Twitter account or anything like that?
I'm gonna talk to Jan real soon and have her teach me. Yeah.
Well, you're on Google. You're on the Hangout. That's great, Darrel.
This has been great. This is the first time I've participated in a Google Hangout, and it's awesome. So we will surely look at this, and really, this is a great way to, again, to communicate and to have everyone feel part of this process. So.
We really appreciate you folks coming on and talking story. Thank you so much. Hey, Fred, is there anything you want to close with?
You know, just to echo the thanks. This is also new for me. I tried it out yesterday with a friend just to make sure I knew how to do it. And Mike, thanks for helping me at the last minute. I almost wasn't here. No, this is really great, and I think that there's a nice audience that tuned in today, and there were some provocative questions. I hope that these discussions continue. Thank you very much for providing the platform. It's very cool.
Jan, anything you want to say?
Just a personal note. You know that I very much am interested in social media and connecting. And when we went to the Michael Stranditsky School, I asked the teacher if she would mind connecting with our students, and she was very happy to do that. I wrote to the principal, and we are going to continue. She wrote back to me today, and she said she's going to give your address, Michelle, because I gave her yours, and some of the teachers from the other grade levels may be also writing to try to connect with our kids. So I'm really excited about that. Edmonton is 4 hours ahead. New York is 6, so it really is a little bit better. And when daylight savings kicks in, it'll just be three hours. So our teachers were pretty excited about that. So I'm looking forward to that part.
Definitely. And I did want to mention that Anne Turige has joined us. She's a librarian here in the DOE, and she wanted to thank you folks for giving us hope. So thank you from Anne, and actually I think many educators will feel that. This was a great hangout tonight because, you know, we have our regular loyal fan, Peggy George, who's with us, and then, of course, Shane, who's here from Mililani, and so exciting to have Chris. But then the neat thing, too, Darrel and Fred, is that folks will watch this hangout later, after the fact, via the YouTube link. And I know Mike is anxious for me to close, but Shane called us out because he said, Darrel is asking for personalized PD, so one of us should step up and offer to help you, Darrel. And we hope that you will...
Hale Kula, Darrel.
Calling on us. Yeah, Hale Kula. That's right. We're definitely willing. So, Mike, any last-minute words you want to say about the show notes or anything?
No, I just wanted to show some appreciation with our special guests. We definitely appreciate you guys coming on and connecting with us and sharing your experiences on your trip and with the world out there. We love this tool here that it's called a Hangout, and this is a Hangout on air, which is a live broadcast through YouTube, so that's why we have these special guests. But as Michelle mentioned, it also gets archived on YouTube for people to watch later. So tomorrow we'll have the YouTube video recorded and posted, and it'll be up for anybody to watch at a later time, and I'll definitely share the link with all of you. And yeah, it may be something you guys might want to consider to connect with more schools on the mainland or other parts of the world. It's great to take those trips and to meet face to face. There's something to be said about face to face interaction, but if you can't, if that's not a possibility, there's always these great tools like Hangouts and Skype and other video conferencing applications. But yeah, that's all the time we have for tonight. Unfortunately, it's a very short amount of time, and it went by extremely quick. But the conversation was rich, and we definitely appreciate our audience chiming in there with their questions and their comments. It's always fun. It makes the conversation so much better when we have our audience out there, and we had a fairly large audience tonight. So yeah, we definitely appreciate that. But don't forget to check our show notes link there. We did put some new resources there as we had our conversations tonight. So that YouTube video that Chris Betcher shared, the image that Peggy George mentioned in the Q&A, as well as the book that Jan mentioned earlier, all those resources are in there, as well as some other people to follow and to add to your professional learning network. So you can find that there at bit.ly/mixplate-28, and that'll be there for people to check out. And this video and the show notes will be archived on our website as well at bit.ly/EdTech. And that's all we got for you guys tonight. Thank you very much again to our special guests. We really appreciate it, and to our live audience for for sticking with us this late into the night. But next week we have one more episode for Connected Educator Month. We'll be talking to some teachers as well as having our usual panel. We'll be focusing on the theme of blended learning, which is another theme for Connected Educator Month. So that's the theme we'll be focusing on for next week's episode. So we hope to see you guys next Sunday. But thanks again, and have a great night, everyone.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you.